Hi guys, it's My Doc and Dukov. How are you doing this afternoon? This is Alicia Dukov, the Dukov portion of the show, and here's Dr. Jenkins.
Dr. Gregory Jenkins.
My Doc. Just so that we can refer people to this amazing doctor here. His practice is on Lyons Avenue. It's actually called My Doc. That's your official name, right?
Just Gregory Jenkins. My Doc is kind of the business name, but it's me there.
And when people want to look you up, what do they look up online?
They go to Gregory Jenkins MD, or they can go to Gregory Jenkins MD Yelp, or they can just call my number.
And you've been voted #1 doctor in Santa Clarita how many times now?
11.
11 times.
Before they even had the
Wow.
contest, I was winning.
No, he's the head of the board of the contest, right?
No, it's my contest.
And you've just been like an incredibly active community member for years. You were chief of staff at Henry Mayo, right? I mean, so you've had
chief of staff twice. I'm the
twice.
Of all the times that the hospital's been open since 1967, 70, something like that.
Amazing. You're not that old.
No, I'm talking about the hospital.
Okay. I was going to say.
I was going to say that since the hospital's been open, myself and only one other doctor have been chief of staff twice. So that means your colleagues think you're doing a good job.
I think you're doing a good job. And I mean, me personally, I'm really honored that you're my doc. And I bring my kid to you, and I'm going to continue bringing my kid to you. If you go on Dr. Jenkins' website, my child, Luca, is actually on there. So it just feels good to have a personable private doctor, and I think we're really lucky in Santa Clarita that we have you. You know, we have that old town feel here that we want to keep.
We're definitely in Old Town right now.
Yeah, we're in Old Town Newhall right now. That's where the station is, and your office is down Lyons. But keeping that Old Town feel here is really nice. It's really important, and you're definitely one of the main factors as to why that still exists. And
That's right.
I love that. So if you're listening today and you wanted to call in, we're going to be talking about extremes today, how we live our life kind of in extremes.
Not like hot and cold, are we? Not hot and cold?
No, not hot and cold. What do you think I mean by extremes?
Well, I didn't know what you're talking about was extremes. You know, black and white is extreme difference in colors.
Definitely.
But I bet
Except there are lots of shades of gray I keep hearing about.
I heard that. I heard that. I wonder if you've seen that yet.
No, I haven't seen the second one yet.
Me either. I haven't seen the first one.
I saw the first one. It's just, for me, there was this meme going around Facebook that cracked me up. There was, it was after the first one, this picture of a trailer. It said, if a guy was like a BDSM master and tied you up and you know, took you away and treated you like Christian Grey did in the film, but he lived here, would you want to be with him? Would it be as romantic as this film? And they were kind of speaking to the fact that Christian Grey, being this multimillionaire, is what made the whole thing sexy, when really it's about the sexual acts themselves. But it was just funny because the meme was like, if the guy was, you know, into BDSM and was as disturbed as Christian Grey is, but he lived in a beat up old trailer, would it be as sexy? So that was really the thing I took away from the film.
Well, then you probably don't need to see it again.
Yeah, it's pop culture. It's the culture fascination with the underground sexual world, and I think you and I will have different shows regarding this, but maybe on podcasts.
I think, you know, even there's other shows sort of like that, Mr. Mike or Mikey Mike or what was that called? I can't remember.
You mean Magic Mike? The one where he's dancing?
The dancers, yeah. And there's one other one that was something like that I know a lot of women went to see, because once I was at a restaurant and the theater was next door. The thing was filled with women.
Oh, yeah.
And then Magic Mike night. Even some of them took limos in, and they made a night of it.
Which is nice to see, because oftentimes you're only looking at women getting sexualized. So it's really nice to see, you know, those mainstream movies that come out where it's like, yeah, take it off, and it's the man.
Right.
So, you know, why not have the balance?
Right.
Speaking of balance, this is what the show is about today. We are constantly trying to find that balance, but it seems that in our nature we do it in really extreme ways. And one of the topics today is going to be hypochondria, because we try to find these ways to be healthy. And what ends up happening is kind of an anxiety around trying to be healthy, which creates very unhealthy things. So hypochondria would actually be one of them that we develop in this anxiety over trying to be healthy. And it transmits itself in lots of different ways. It doesn't have to be clinically diagnosable to be hypochondria. You could just be finding yourself obsessing about, you know, ingredients in your food, you know, the things that are emitted in the air, in the environment around you. We become really engaged in maybe to an extreme nature ways of trying to keep us healthy, and it's actually causing a lot of lack of health in your psyche because it creates all this anxiety. So that's one of our big topics today, is just to talk about that, and on the medical side and the psychological side. And then I want to go further into the nature of human beings and us living in extremes. You see this in society everywhere. We live in extremes. You know, we don't find that happy medium. We do everything in either one direction too much or not enough of it in the other direction.
Right. We can't stay equal, can't stay balanced.
Right. And it's ironic because part of our condition as a human being is to maintain homeostasis. And homeostasis is like, I mean, for lack of any other better term, would be balance. It's trying to find that balance. We seem to not be able to find it. We go to these extremes, too much of something, not enough of another. And it causes us total lack of clarity in ourselves. We get lost in that anxiety, trying to find a balance that, we're striving for in everything that we do. So it causes that anxiety we're going to talk about today.
Well, the anxiety is brought about because some kind of previous incident, whether you were scared as a child by the train or by an airplane or bugs or snakes, whatever you're afraid of. Those are all brought around with something that happened when you were younger.
So, like, speaking about hypochondria, which let's give the definition of. Do you have the medical definition? I've got the psychological one, but I'm sure they're the same.
I think I have it. It's an irrational fear, a kind of anxiety disorder in which the individual has a relentless dread of a situation, living creature, place, or thing.
No, that's a phobia.
That's what I was reading.
Hypochondria. Oh, okay. But I was speaking specifically about health-related, like hypochondria.
I had that here too.
Basically, exactly what you just said. It's a phobia about health. That's what hypochondria is. It's an actual phobia about being healthy.
Oh, that's what I talked about on the previous show, how the hypochondria coming from the ribs, and the things are close to your heart. The ribs are close to your heart. That was where it started out originally. And then the hypochondriac, is a person that always fears they have some kind of illness. And most of the time they don't, but sometimes they're right.
And I guess it's good to be up on your own body and be aware of what's going on inside there. But how does it become too much? When does it become too much to be concerned about your?
I think the patients that I see that are worried about being ill, they have anxiety about being ill. So what they do is they research, they think, they talk to people. They go to the doctor many times for these unusual complaints, like. Maybe you could say, I came to the doctor and I told the doctor that I hear a whooshing noise in my ear. Could that be a heart attack?
Wow.
So we have to, work through that. And myself, what I always try to do to just make things better is I take the patient, whatever the chief complaint is and what they're afraid of. And, are they afraid of having a heart attack? Are they afraid of having this and that? I do the complete evaluation as if they were having a heart attack. And then sometimes when you have all the reports, say, here, they're all normal, so that means you don't have that. So you should just relax and...
Oh, I see what you do. It's a good tactic. You kind of meet them where they're at and say, okay, let's assume you have it.
Yeah, whatever you're afraid of, we find out about what it is, and then we test for it. And if the tests are normal, most of the time they are normal, the patient gets better.
That's a really similar philosophy to what I do in therapy. So what you're basically saying is you give them the chance to face their fear. You're not skirting around the issue. You're not saying, I don't know if it's that extreme. Let's test for other things. You're going straight to it.
Many times they're worried about having a certain kind of cancer, so we test for it. We do the blood test for the cancers, or do the CAT scan for the cancer. And once they have it, they're usually relaxed. It's like, we tested for it. No, I don't have it.
Right.
But sometimes I see the same patient for the same complaint years later because they just haven't got the fear out of their brain.
Oh, wow. And so the fear would be of something specific, like a specific illness or any kind of illness?
Yeah, it's usually cancers and things that can kill you. Heart disease. I think I'm going to have a stroke. And I said, well, you're 23 years old and you have normal blood pressure, so probably you're not going to have a stroke, but let's work it up. Let's evaluate it and find out. We'll get the labs, we'll get the CAT scan, we'll get the MRI. We'll get whatever it's needed to make you feel relaxed and know that you're not going to have one.
And then at that point, do you also say maybe you should go to a therapist to talk about your fear of the fact that you might be having a stroke at 23?
I do tell them after I have it all evaluated. I say, maybe this is just a fear that you have, and maybe you should talk to a therapist.
Right.
And it happens to be one on the show. everybody's listening.
Right.
Right next to me.
A therapist and a doctoral student in going into my dissertation this year. And it's really interesting. I'm going to be doing left and right brain interactions in this new technique that I'm cultivating for treatment for PTSD.
Well, that's
so
good.
it's interesting that we're having this conversation right now because PTSD is very linked, PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, it's very linked to phobias. Phobias come out of this PTSD. We've had a trauma. It doesn't necessarily have to be combat related. Trauma can be, I'm traumatized. I have PTSD from the 94 earthquake. And the phobias that have come out of that I had to work through in my adolescence, because I was only 12 when we had the earthquake, were tremendous. And if it wasn't for me having a loving, strong foundation that made me feel secure around the presence of the phobias that ensued, if it wasn't for me being a little more astute and proactive with myself internally to be able to address my issues, even at a young age, I wouldn't have, I think, gone through the phobic process of releasing that fear as well as I have. And then sometimes I still get a little bit nervous. I still get a little shaky about the presence of a possible earthquake. But it hasn't gripped me.
You're sitting in your house and a truck goes by and makes a bunch of noise.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
You jump probably, yeah.
Right, yeah. And also, I think there was an aftershock or a little tiny earthquake a few weeks ago here in Santa Clarita.
Right.
And the epicenter was here. And it was a 3-point something. It felt bigger because the epicenter was here. But I was in my office with clients, and it shook for a few seconds. It was a good roller. And all of us just kind of like gripped the chairs we were sitting in, like, what's going on, And one of us in the room, out of the three of us, had not been here for the 94 earthquake, and she was less affected by the shaking. Whereas me and the other client had been here for the 94 earthquake. Both of us remember the feeling that any trigger, any shaking after that big one felt like it was going to be the next big one. So that became a stressor in the environment, a trigger, if you will, if we're using PTSD terminology. This trigger of just any small shaking could have been the next big one, just like all the big aftershocks were after the earthquake. So he and I were both like running for the door because it was like, is it going to happen again?
Okay, you kind of sit around with your eyes kind of open bigger than normal and you're looking at each other.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Did you feel that? Look? Did you feel
terrible.
that?
I hate earthquakes.
Well, you know what? As far as disasters go, I'd rather have that because instead of a flood or a fire, because the flood makes a big mess.
I think it's all bad.
I mean, if I had to choose my...
you have to choose your death by traumatic
I'll do the earthquake.
Natural disaster, tsunami.
Sounds like a good
at least
show.
you get to swim.
Good show on radio and TV.
What? Which is?
What are you afraid of?
Oh, how do you want to die on a
Either burnt,
natural
crushed,
disaster?
drowned in mud.
It's all bad. And I'm sorry if whoever's listening right now has phobias and we are triggering each one of them.
We're not trivializing, that's for sure.
And we're certainly not trivializing those who have passed away on such traumatic natural disasters. But we are talking about phobias today that are linked to how we live our lives and what are hindering us from living healthy, productive lives on the level we want to. And that's really the heart of what today is about, because I think what leads us to these extremes is our nature to want to live healthy lives. What leads somebody to caring about their health?
Right, we want to be safe. We want to feel safe, not be injured.
We want to feel safe.
Not be injured.
We want to protect ourselves. We want to live to the best of our ability, reach our potential. And I think our extreme nature of trying to achieve that is causing more hindrance than good. And that is because we are extreme creatures. So I have a couple of cool articles I brought up.
Oh, good.
That I'm going to be referring to.
I think that, and of course, phobia is different from a fear.
Okay, let's explain that.
A fear is something that you can work through. Like for my example, I don't like snakes.
Indiana Jones.
That's one point. Yeah, I forgot about that one. That was more
you just
snakes.
Want to be Indiana Jones.
I only see one at a time though. But if I see one around the house, I get the shovel and I pick it up and throw it over in the bushes.
You have a vineyard. Do they end up in your vineyard?
I haven't seen any.
Okay, well that's good. So they don't like grapes.
No, they don't like grapes.
Where do you find them?
Usually on the concrete. On the hard things. Not they don't. I don't see them come in. They don't go into a hole that I've ever seen, but they're out on the sidewalk or around the rocks or something. They like little tunnel things.
I know that last year there were all these warnings around during rattlesnake season. That particular year last year, for some reason, had an explosion of rattlesnake babies. Rattlesnakes just overpopulated last year. I don't know why. So Luca was at Tom Sawyer Adventure Camp in Pasadena, in La Cañada in the hills, and they sent out all these warnings that would freak parents out.
Like, bring your
you know,
antivenom.
Right,
with you.
anti-venom spray, just to let you know your child has to wear high boots, closed-toed shoes, because we don't want them accidentally stepping on a rattlesnake. These are things that, these warnings, obviously it's trying to keep your child safe, but that could cause a huge phobia for parents. And being a parent is just a
I forget about that.
magnet for phobias.
They're afraid of their children being hurt. You're right.
Oh my gosh. I mean, we've had a slight topic about this on one of our previous shows. But the first year and a half of Luca's life, every little was like, oh my God, I have to get on WebMD and figure out what he's got. And we had a show a few weeks ago about how not to do that. Get off the sauce of being on the web looking at all these symptoms, because you type in headache and it comes up with brain tumor.
That's right.
So it's going to cause more
The City of
damage
Hope,
than
the
good.
City of Hope, and the St. Jude ad just pops up right next to it.
It's terrible. Oh God, I don't know why they scare people like that.
Yeah, why do they?
I don't know. Maybe they're masochists. We're masochists that we keep doing it. So on the medical side, what have you brought in today about phobias?
Well, I have some interesting phobias here.
And then that's going to kind of seep into my topic about how we're in extremes in our lives and how to hopefully cultivate a little bit more of an awareness of a balance for ourselves that doesn't include jumping from one end of the spectrum in this extreme all the way to the other end of the spectrum. So,
right. Yeah, and I know as far as phobias go, they're much more dangerous than fears. And they estimate there's 50 million people that have phobias. And I think that's a lot.
It is a lot.
Do you know any of your friends that have a phobia?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I don't have any friends, I guess.
Well, okay, and we're talking about clinically diagnosable when we're talking about a phobia, correct? We're not just saying I'm scared of something.
No, I think it's the people that have symptoms. They can't breathe, their heart's pounding, they start sweating when they see a dog or an airplane or whatever they don't want to do.
Okay.
They have these fear things that make them do things.
So we all know arachnophobia because we saw that movie.
Right.
That's fear of spiders. Agoraphobia is fear of going outside your house.
Well, it's outside or any place that you can recognize. So if you somehow wake up in a different town, let's say you were on a trip and you wake up and somebody pulled over to go take a nap and you wake up.
You had Ambien and you woke up
and
in
you don't
a
know where you are.
different
You don't know where you are. Yeah, that does the same thing. How about snakes?
What is that called?
That's ophidiophobia.
Oh, wow.
It's ophidiophobia.
That would give me a phobia.
I'm reading it. But I don't know why they call that one. It makes a sense for like flying. Aviophobia.
Flying is aviophobia, right?
Right.
I might have a little bit of the bird one. What is it?
Let me try to help you guys out here.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm kind of good at this.
Oh.
I don't know why. It's ophidiophobia.
That's what. Well, I guess it's a hard.
Ophidiophobia.
Ophidiophobia.
Ophidiophobia is the fear of
Isn't that guy a
snakes.
rap singer? Ophidio.
Sure. We'll say
Now,
yes,
Justin,
please.
is this a secret talent of yours because you have a lot of phobias?
No,
Or-
I have a strange. I'm good at pronouncing things. I guess I don't know.
Oh, very
Spelling,
cool.
pronouncing.
We're gonna have to remember that when we bring in all of our neurological
Emetophobia.
emetophobia,
Emetophobia. When if you throw up, it's called emesis.
fear of vomiting.
Fear of
Wow.
vomiting. I see some kids that they just hate vomiting. They're afraid they threw up in the third grade class. They still remember they're afraid to vomit because of that. I'm the opposite. If I feel like I'm sick, I just want to throw up and get it over with.
But that third grader would have had a phobia coming out of it because of maybe being ostracized by his class.
They threw up right in front of the teacher's
It was
desk
the
or
most
something.
embarrassing. He threw up on his crush's desk
Right.
and got it in her hair. It could be very traumatizing to a 9-year-old.
Now
Both of them.
you are very fair-skinned.
Yes.
Have you ever had erythrophobia?
Urethrophobia. Let me see if I can think about the Latin. Did these come from Latin
Yes.
roots? Okay. Urethrophobia. So urethra.
No, erythro.
Urethra. Oh, no, I don't.
It's the fear of blushing. And I never heard of anybody being afraid to blush. Because I blush. We all blush.
Yeah.
I bet since you're fair, you'd blush more.
I like blushing. I like feeling like I'm blushing.
Really?
Yeah, because that means that I've been affected in a positive way by something. And it gets me all like little girly.
How about social phobia? Do you have anybody have social phobia? They're afraid to be in big places.
I will tell you this. My husband and my mother, who coincidentally are a day apart, their birthdays are a day apart. So I basically married my mother.
that
So I belong in therapy for a whole bunch of different reasons. Okay. But the point is, as wonderful as they both are, they're both very temperamental when they're in social environments. So my mother and my husband both cannot stand being in big crowds. They cannot stand being someplace too busy. They can't stand being too close to people. They need their space. This either comes down to characteristics about people, or it could be on the level of a phobia. And it really just depends on criteria that you meet in order to follow what it would be considered to be a phobia to be diagnosed with one.
Right.
Otherwise, you're just temperamental, or you have a specific thing about your character that doesn't like to be with big crowds.
I like big crowds, like
that
for
difference?
concerts and things like that, but I don't really like big crowds for sporting events.
I don't mind any of it. Like, it doesn't bother me at all. But my husband can't even go to IKEA. When we were in Switzerland, the biggest IKEA in the world exists there because IKEA is from Switzerland. I mean, to drag him there, like his fingernails were scraping on the ground. I would have to literally drag him because it was his worst nightmare to be in IKEA on a Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, I heard that.
Doesn't bother me
I heard
at
this
all.
joke once. It's something like that. And the guy says he goes to Home Depot or IKEA, any place like that, and he walks up to a couple and he says to the man, how do you do it? I don't know how you do it. Your girlfriend must really love you she's
To bring you here.
She's here at Home Depot with you,
Right?
So I thought that's pretty funny because when you go to Home Depot or IKEA, you don't always see the spouses.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I mean, I enjoy it if it's something like aesthetic that I'm going to be doing to my house. You know, if it's like a color of a paint, or if it's like I'm getting to pick light fixtures. That's decorating. Light fixtures. Yeah, I'm not going to be putting them in, but I get to pick them. So we're going to break in a sec. If something so far has struck your interest and you want to know what kind of phobia you might have, or what the criteria is to be diagnosed with one versus just being afraid of something or not liking crowds, give us a call at 661-298-5487. That's 661-298-KHTS. This is KHTS AM 1220. We'll be right back.